Good to see everybody here this beautiful morning. So glad that everybody could make it and none of us got carried away to follow that yellow brick road. The title of this lesson is Questions I Can't Answer. Many of us in the Lord's church, when we study with people, have had to tell people, well, I don't know the answer, but the next time we get together, I'll have looked it up in the Bible, and I'll have it. The Bible is an amazing book. It's easy enough for a child to understand, and still complex enough that the most intelligent scholar will not understand everything about it and will continue to learn as long as he or she lives. It's an amazing book and quite simple for most things. Marshall Keeble, my second favorite preacher in all the world, he's one of the greatest gospel preachers in all the world, and most certainly the greatest black preacher ever. He said, the gospel is so clear, a man can't hardly misunderstand it without help. That's one thing. He always spoke the truth very clearly and very concisely. God is so wise that we can learn from His Word, even from some of the things that we don't truly understand. There are some questions that we just cannot understand. And if you ask me one of those questions, I'll have to say, I don't know. Some questions we will not ever know. One of those we know from Matthew 24:36 is if you ask me when the Lord's coming back, when that great and terrible day of the Lord is going to come, I'm going to be honest and tell you, I can't answer that. The angels don't know. Even the Son doesn't know. Only God in heaven knows. That's a question I can't answer. Well, I could try. But I could try to tell you why quantum physics works, and it'd still be a lie. Because I don't know. And nobody knows. Now, another thing that I don't understand, that I can't get, and I'm doing this so that you can understand where I'm coming from when we get to the end. It's David and the showbread. That's found in the New Testament. It is referred to in Mark 2:23-28, Luke 6:1-5, and Matthew 12:1-8. First, where I'm going to read Mark, the second chapter, verses 23-28. One Sabbath, he was going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. And the Pharisees were saying to him, "Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" And he said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he was in need and was hungry, he and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God in the time of Abiathar the high priest and ate the bread of the presence, which it is not lawful for any but the priests to eat, and also gave it to those who were with him. And he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. Now, Luke 6:1 explains a little bit more. He goes, on the Sabbath, while he was going through the grain fields, his disciples plucked and ate some of the heads of grain, rubbing them in their hands. The law said you couldn't harvest on the Sabbath. That was work. Well, they weren't working very hard. How many of you have walked through the field where the wild oats grow, and you take your fingers down like that, and you trail them along, and you get a bunch of them in there, and I don't know if you ever ate the wild oats. I did. I liked them. I guess that was weird. But I enjoyed that. I never considered that work, but that was harvesting. But he didn't just say, well, I'm Lord of the Sabbath, so I can do what I want. He went back to something that I don't understand. The law was very clear. Only the priests could eat the bread of the presence. And yet, David did. And wasn't condemned for it. I don't understand. There's something about the law that I just don't get there. Because the only part that I could read said it was wrong. I don't understand Rahab. In Joshua 2:1-16, I'm not going to read it. You can read it on your own because we don't have all year here. You know, to save the lives of the spies, she lied. She just didn't weasel a little. She flat out lied. And yet, not only were her and her household saved, but she is praised. So much that this Gentile woman is in the lineage of David and Jesus the Christ. I know all liars have their part. I don't get it. I don't understand. But then I started thinking of some other things. You know, you can go to a lawyer, and a lawyer can quote a passage of the law to you, and he can say, I'm taking you to court because this and so. You know, that's why we have courts, because one lawyer says this and one says another. But you know, when you get before the judge may quote a different section of the law that he didn't know or forgot about, and say, okay, you win the case. You go free. Well, we're not under the law of Moses, but we are under the perfect law of liberty. We are under the law. Now the thing is, I'm not the judge of that law. Throw in one other thing here that I'm going to go, because what I'm trying to get is, you know what? None of us understand everything about the law. That's just a fact. You know, you read Romans 5:12-14, you will find out for a fact that sin came into this world through Adam. I don't know, but when I go back to Genesis, somebody else ate the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil first. It was Eve. I don't understand. Now I do know. Let's turn to 1 Timothy 2:14. Just and Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Adam did it on purpose. She got fooled. He wasn't fooled, he knew what he was doing. Does that make a difference? I don't see that in much other places, and yet, for some reason, Adam's sin is the one that passed sin on into this world and brought death into this world. Do I understand that? I have God's word here, I have God's law, but I can't understand all of it. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Many people have a problem with obeying the gospel. They hesitate to obey the gospel because they have family that's passed on. And although they loved God and they served Him to the best of their knowledge, they didn't understand the gospel, so they didn't obey it. And that weighs on their heart. And I understand that. So many of them will ask you the question every time you try to teach people the gospel. Go, well, what about so-and-so? They didn't obey the gospel. Are you telling me they're lost? And when I say, and they say, well, what about them? I don't know. I can't answer that. Not I won't. I'm not trying to weasel out of the question. To play funny games. I'm going to tell you flat out. I cannot and should not try to answer that. I want you to turn to the book of James. When you get over to the book of James, you turn to chapter 4. Now we're going to be reading from verse 11. Do not speak evil against one another, brothers. The one who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is only one lawgiver and judge, he who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you to judge your brother? I am not fit to pass judgment on anyone. Only the judge who gave the law is able to do that. Nobody else can. The one thing I do know teaches that that judge doesn't want anybody to perish. I don't know his law. I know it's not willy-nilly. But I've given several things here where we can look and go, well, you know what? I know what the part of the law I know says. All I can find. And yet God says, well, you don't know it all. I can't tell you what happens. I can tell you that everything is in the hands of a merciful God, and that nothing you do will make a whit of difference on those that have passed. I know there are a lot of people that didn't understand a lot of things. But we're still in James, so turn down to verse 17 in that same chapter. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is a sin. I don't know about anybody that's passed on. I trust in a merciful God. But I do know that when we do know what's right, we do need to do it. It's that easy and that simple. Now, I'm going to tell you something else. There's a story in the Bible. Some people call it a parable. I don't. It's in Luke 16, 19 through 32. And you can turn there. 16th chapter of the book of Luke, and it starts in verse 19. Most people are worried about those that are good in the way that we think of good. But here's a story about a different kind of a person. There was a rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen, and who feasted sumptuously every day. And at his gate was laid a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who desired to be fed with what fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, even the dogs came and licked his sores. The poor man died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. And in Hades, being in torment, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham far off, and Lazarus at his side. And he called out, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus to dip the end of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am in anguish in this flame. But Abraham said, Child, remember that you in your lifetime received your good things, and Lazarus in like manner bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in anguish. And besides all this, between us and you, as great chasm has been fixed, in order that those who had passed from here to you may not be able to, and none may cross from there to us. And he said, Then I beg you, Father, to send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, so that he may warn them, lest they also come into this place of torment. But Abraham said, They have Moses and the prophets. Let them hear them. And he said, No, Father Abraham, but if someone goes to them from the dead, they will repent. And he said to him, If they do not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be convinced if someone should rise from the dead. What this story tells me is something that I can answer with a surety. whether or not they are saved, want us to be saved. It doesn't matter. Do not let a sense of not wanting to betray or condemn loved people keep you from doing what is right. We do know that when we're Christians and we're walking in the light, although sometimes that light gets dim, we're still saved. That's the one thing I can guarantee you, is that your loved ones want you to do the best you know how. If anybody needs to answer the invitation in a public way, you can come now as we stand and as we sing.